I am the true heiress of the prestigious Jiang family, but my nanny maliciously swapped me with her own daughter. When the truth finally surfaced, I was brought back home. Yet one sob from the fake heiress was enough for my biological parents to drop all charges. Instead, they pressured me to be generous and stay quiet. The nanny's family didn't just escape punishment. They thrived on the fake heiress's wealth. My parents gave her their unconditional trust, leaving me emotionally drained and exhausted. But how the tables have turned. 10 years later, the fake heiress's own child was swapped, detonating a scandal. The eldest Zhang brother secretly took his son for a paternity test, only to find he wasn't the father. The second brother checked his daughter's DNA, and she wasn't his either. One must be magnanimous, I mocked. Why make such an ugly scene? Zhang Lingyuan cornered me just as I finished work, while I was merely planning my dinner. I looked up and saw his face what a curse. I had zero interest in acknowledging him, trying to brush past, but he barked, "Lingzhu, we need to talk." "Mr. Jiang, I'm busy," I retorted. "I'm heading home to cook." "Just 10 minutes, he pleaded. "You must know, the family is in chaos." "Of course I know," I replied. "My phone notifications haven't stopped buzzing for days. The Jiang group is drowning in a baby swapping scandal, and their stock price is plummeting because of me. Somehow, those foster parents of mine stayed deeply connected to the fake heiress Zhang Xiyun. She showered them with a fortune, allowing them to buy a massive luxury villa in the city. Overnight, they skyrocketed into the ranks of the nouveau riche. Once people like that have nothing to do, they crave attention. They began constantly bragging to everyone about what a wonderful daughter they had. But a keen observer noticed the cracks, and after getting the foster father wasted on booze, the man spilled the entire dirty secret. A video was recorded, uploaded, and it went viral instantly. "Mr. Jiang, what does your family's disaster have to do with me?" "Lingzhu, this is no time for a tantrum," he snapped, his brow furrowed deeply, adopting that same old patronizing tone of an eldest brother. "Our parents are getting old," he lectured. "They can't handle this kind of pressure. Xiyun is pregnant and being bombarded with hate mail. She's on the verge of a total breakdown. We're a family," he claims, "but listen, Mr. Jiang, your paternalistic entitlement is absolutely suffocating. I have zero interest in speaking with you." After snapping that, I try to sidestep him. "Wait, if you just step forward and say a few kind words, to prove you left the family on your own accord." I freeze and look up at him. The dim streetlights cast a cold glow across his features, splitting his face into jagged light and shadow. His chin is tilted up arrogantly, lips pressed thin with sheer, barely contained impatience. It was exactly like this 10 years ago. He stood atop the Zhang family's grand spiral staircase, looking down at me like I was something he'd stepped in. What did I even look like back then? Oh, right now, I remember. I was clutching a single worn-out bag that contained every single thing I owned. I must have looked incredibly pathetic. "Throw that trashy bag away," he'd said. "You can use anything in this house, but don't you dare touch anything that belongs to Xiyun." In that one sentence, all my joy, excitement, and hope were utterly extinguished. I realized instantly that I was a guest they never wanted back. "Zhang Lingyuan, did you even watch that video?" He frowns and nods, so he actually saw it. Then how the hell does he have the nerve to show his face? I'll never forget the foster father's face in that footage. Even through the blur, you could see it. That smug, triumphant, and utterly foul expression. He bragged about abusing me and tearing me down, gloating over how magnificent his own daughter's life had become. And yet, Zhang Lingyuan acts like he's blind to it all. No, he saw it, he just didn't give a damn. "You chose to leave on your own back then," he argues. "If you just come out and clear the air." "Get lost," I cut him off. I don't waste my breath on morons. Ignoring his livid expression, I brush past him without a second glance. I head to the 3rd floor, whip out my keys, and bolt the door behind me. The entire sequence is smooth, practiced, and fluid. I learned the hard way a decade ago. Some relationships aren't worth the effort to maintain. I first met the Zhang family when I was 23. I had just graduated from university back then, suffocating under the weight of financial ruin, working a corporate job by day and a convenience store by night. That was when my biological parents finally tracked me down. I was just working the register at the convenience store when they stumbled in dressed in tattered rags. The moment they crossed the threshold, they wailed, sobbing about how they'd failed me all those years ago. They claimed my younger brother was getting married, but the family couldn't scrape together the $300,000 bride price. They begged me the girl they discarded to save them. But where was I supposed to get that kind of cash? I was drowning in student loans that I hadn't even begun to pay off. Suddenly, my foster mother dropped to her knees and started bashing her head on the floor, the thuds echoing violently through the store. Everyone around us couldn't help but stare, their eyes filled with judgment and suspicion. When I was 18 years old, I was the one kneeling before them just like that, pleading with them not to sell me off to a 40-year-old womanizer. But that woman just said the man was offering $200,000, enough to buy your brother a bride. "You'll live in luxury," they lied. "An older husband knows how to cherish a woman." I faked my submission playing the obedient daughter, until night fell and I snatched my residency permit and ID. I scrambled out of the 2nd-story window, plunging into a pile of discarded cardboard boxes below. I ran without looking back and I didn't stop for 5 long years. After I finished middle school, they had forbidden me from continuing my education. But once I broke free, I spent every waking hour working and studying. I fought my way through adult entrance exams to graduate college, only for those monsters to track me down again. Right as my foster parents were putting on their tearful show, the Jiang family made their grand entrance. It was like a scene straight out of a K-drama. Luxury cars bespoke suits, and a well-groomed middle-aged couple. With tear-streaked eyes, they pulled me into an embrace, claiming they had searched for me for over 20 years. They begged for my forgiveness through their sobs. The moment the Jiang couple appeared, my foster parents vanished into thin air. I was whisked away to the Jiang family's lavish mansion, where I first laid eyes on Jiang Xiun. Her skin was like polished porcelain, her fingers slender and soft, untouched by hardship. Meanwhile, my hands were covered in permanent calluses, and my arms bore the hideous scars of the beatings I'd endured. Yet it was undeniable I shared the Jiang family's features. While she looked exactly like those wretched foster parents, I didn't simply wander off and get lost. I was stolen and swapped by those monsters. I exposed the truth, demanding the police arrest them immediately. But the moment Jiang Xiun shed a single tear, the Jiang parents shut me down. They are Xiyun's biological parents after all they said. Arresting them would destroy her reputation. You're finally back now, and we'll make it up to you. Just let the past be the past. Be magnanimous, and stop making such an embarrassing scene. Zhang Lingyuan chose that exact moment to return, echoing that same heartless sentiment. That night, I tossed and turned on a massive 2-meter wide bed. Unable to find peace, I endured a month in that house. During those 30 days, every single thing I did was framed as a mistake. At dinner, they criticized the way I held my chopsticks. If Xiyun lost something, they accused me of stealing. If Xiyun tripped, they claimed I'd shoved her. Not once did they care to truly know me, to understand the hell I'd survived, or even listen to a single thought in my head. The fantasy of laughing in my parents' arms was ultimately just that, a pathetic delusion. They would always, without fail, side with Jiang Xiun, refusing to even hear my defense. They'd just preach at me, "You're the older sister. You need to yield to your younger sibling." Xiun has lived with us for over 20 years. We know exactly what kind of pure soul she is. Her health is fragile, so don't dare upset her. If you find it hard to adjust, you can move out. We'll rent an apartment for you and send you a monthly allowance. Perhaps a younger version of me would have craved their love, but I'd already survived 5 years of grinding in the real world. Taking the money and running was a much better deal. I refused to be the Jiang family's punching bag, and I wouldn't act like a desperate dog, scrapping with Jiang Xiun for their so-called affection. Life is far too short to waste. I wanted to pursue my own passions and live a life of quiet stability. So when the time came to leave, I didn't hesitate for a single second. I just didn't follow the script they had written for me. Instead, I simply took the 100,000 yuan settlement, shouldered my backpack, and vanished completely for all these years. They never once bothered to look for me. And my foster parents didn't care to find me either. If this scandal hadn't suddenly gone viral, I bet it would have never even crossed their minds to seek me out. Just as I finished my dinner, my phone began to vibrate incessantly. It was an unrecognized number. I glanced at it once, declined it, but it immediately rang again. When it persisted for the third time, I finally hit the answer button, only to hear a man's voice on the other end, seething with uncontrollable rage. "Linju, how dare you hang up on me?" It was Jiang Huaizhou, my second brother, whom I hadn't seen in a decade. "Answer me, Linju." I moved the phone away from my ear. Once his pathetic tantrum subsided, I spoke up with icy calm. "Is there something you need, Mr. Jiang?" "Kiyoshi." He audibly choked on his words. "What did you just call me?" "I'm your brother. All my relatives are dead," I countered. "If you have nothing useful to say, I'm hanging up." "Wait, I'm coming to your workplace tomorrow afternoon. We are going to talk." "Mr. Jiang, I'm a very busy woman." "Linju, don't push your luck. The family is facing a massive crisis right now, and you..." I tapped the end call button. Finally, the world was silent again. He certainly picked a bold spot coming to my office. Does he honestly believe that I'd actually give him the time of day just because I'm at work? The next day at 2:30 p.m., someone informed me that a visitor was waiting outside. I peered down from the window, spotting Jiang Huaizhou leaning arrogantly against his car door. His hair was slicked back with meticulous precision, looking every bit the refined gentleman on the surface, despite the dark, irritable gloom radiating from him. I leisurely continued with the work in my hands. "Linju..." 10 more minutes passed. He started shouting my name from the street below. I completely ignored him. He kept blowing up my phone, so I simply flipped it to silent. At 5:30 p.m., I clocked out and saw he was still there. The sun must have risen in the west today. He actually had the patience to wait for me. Fine, let's find a place to settle this. The moment he spotted me, he tried to drag me into the car. I ruthlessly pried his fingers off one by one. All these years have passed, yet his methods are still just as barbaric. Absolutely zero growth. "We have nothing to discuss," I stated. "Fine, Linju, you think you're all grown up now, huh? The family is in shambles. Do you have any idea how much the company stock has tanked? Mom and Dad are crying at home every single day. and Big Brother is completely overwhelmed. Do you really have no conscience left at all? And your point is, I asked? So get your ass back home and hold a press conference. Tell them the leaks online are all filthy lies. Say that Chiyun treated you like a sister, and that the Jiang family never once mistreated you. As long as you personally clear the air, there's still a chance to turn this disaster around. Mr. Jiang, do you actually remember what you said back then? What you said girls from the countryside have no class. I repeated his own words back to him, syllable by syllable. You said if I couldn't handle it, I should just move out. Zhang Huaizhou's expression shifted and soured. And now, you need this classless country girl to save your lives. I scoffed. Where's Jiang Xiyun? Where's your family's precious little princess? Isn't she supposed to be so perfect and capable at everything? Let her go clear the air, you. I stared at Zhang Huaizhou, finding the whole thing pathetic. They never offered me a shred of genuine warmth. I'd already accepted that 100,000 yuan as the price to sever our ties. Yet here they are crawling back to find me. 10 years later, and they haven't changed a bit. Still just as entitled and delusional. Still looking down from their high horses. Acting as if all they have to do is snap their fingers. For me to come crawling back in gratitude. To be the punching bag daughter they can manipulate again. Not a single person ever asked if I was doing okay. Not a single person felt a pang of guilt after watching that video. Not one apology was offered. I told him to get lost just like I did the other one. He stood there wearing a look of pure shocked disbelief. After Zhang Huaizhou finally slunk away, I enjoyed 3 days of absolute peace. But the real versus fake heiress scandal kept exploding online. My true identity was eventually doxed by netizens. People from my old village even stepped forward to testify. Those foster parents subjected me to relentless abuse. It was a living hell, honestly. That poor girl. She wasn't even as tall as the stove when she had to cook for the whole family. The neighbors were truly cold-blooded, beating and screaming at her over nothing, even burning her flesh with lit cigarettes. We tried to intervene and reason with them, but he just snapped that she was his daughter. And how he treated her was none of our damn business. Then my college classmates stepped up, sharing how hard I worked, and how truly inspiring my journey was. They all assumed I was an orphan with no family, completely alone in the world. Meanwhile, a mountain of dirt on Jiang Xiyun surfaced. Shocking photos of her bullying classmates, back in high school, were dragged into the light. Dedicated netizens even compiled a massive dossier, proving she had faked her academic credentials in university. Then there was the footage from last year's Care for Poor Children charity gala, where she flaunted jewelry worth tens of millions. Beneath every single news report about her, hundreds of thousands of scathing comments flooded in. The internet's insults were pure art kudos to the algorithm, for knowing exactly what I love to see and feeding it to me daily. I spent my days glued to my phone, smashing the like button on the most savage roars. I might act like I'm unfazed by it all, but if they're suffering, you can bet I'm enjoying the show, under the weight of this relentless public backlash. The Zhang family's stock value plummeted by 40%. On Saturday morning, my doorbell echoed through the apartment. I peered through the peephole, finding 2 familiar figures standing there. Mr. and Mrs. Zhang. 10 years haven't passed them by at all. They haven't aged a day, clearly maintaining their expensive lifestyles. I leaned against the door, refusing to budge. The bell chimed again. Chuju, mommy knows you're in there. Please open up. Just let mommy look at you for a moment. Lingzu, we just wanted to visit. About everything that happened back then, Kikishikik, we were wrong. We've come to apologize. Yes, Juju, mommy was so wrong. Mommy truly regrets it. Please, just open the door, okay? I didn't open it. The neighbor's door creaked open just a fraction. Taking a sharp, deep breath, I finally pulled the door open. But I didn't swing it wide. I left it open just a sliver. Just say it here. I snapped, blocking the threshold. My place is too small for the likes of you. Mrs. Zhang's face instantly froze in shock. Linju, have you been doing well these last 10 years? I'd be doing much better if you stopped harassing me. Juju, please don't say that. It breaks your mother's heart. We were so foolish back then. We shouldn't have just blindly believed Chiyun's side of the story. But we raised her for over 20 years. There were deep feelings involved. We honestly thought returning things to their proper places would be best for both of you. Proper places. I let out a mocking laugh. Mrs. Zhang, have you completely lost your mind? Things never went back to their proper places. Jiang Xiyun stole my entire life. And you were both her eager accomplices. It wasn't like that. Mom knows you're harboring a lot of resentment. But we are your flesh and blood. Blood is thicker than water. How can you be so heartless? Heartless, I stared her down. When Jiang Xiyun framed me for stealing, did a single one of you ask for my side? When she claimed I pushed her down the stairs, did any of you bother to uncover the truth? When she said I was bullying her, did you ever once believe in me? You never even intended to investigate, did you? My voice dropped to a lethal whisper, because looking for the truth might have proven Chiyun was lying. And you too, you couldn't bear to let your precious daughter of 20 years suffer even a moment of grief, so you sacrificed me instead. Lin Jui were simply inconsiderate back then. But Chiyun, well, she's lived with us for such a long time. It was difficult for us to just cut her off, so I was the one who got cut out. I countered with a piercing glare, because I only had 1 month with you. My feelings were treated as worthless. My innocence meant absolutely nothing. My suffering was just a secondary thought, wasn't it? Mr. Jiang was left utterly speechless. You see, even at a critical moment like this, they haven't even considered truly owning up to their sins. They only know how to use blood ties to emotionally kidnap you, perched on their moral high ground just to lecture you. Also, you'll bow your head and help them save face. The only thing you've ever valued was Jiang Xiyun's feelings, petrified that she might feel wronged, terrified that she might be unhappy. As for me, I was irrelevant, but that's fine, because you are equally irrelevant to me now. I sincerely hope this is the last time I ever lay eyes on you. Chuja mommy is so sorry. Mr. Jiang held her up. He looked at me with desperation. Lingzhu, we'll compensate you. Anything you want, it's yours. A house, a car. Money, just name your price. I looked at them, my patience finally hitting zero. They actually believe that a bit of staged repentance, a few crocodile tears, and a check is all it takes to completely erase the trauma of the past. I don't want a single thing from you. I stated, I just want you to vanish from my life forever. Then I slammed the door shut. Juju, please open the door. Let mommy see you. Her weeping was pathetic and erratic. Slowly, the sobbing outside began to fade. I heard Mr. Jiang whisper something under his breath, followed by the sound of their footsteps retreating into the distance. Finally, the world was at peace. When Monday morning rolled around, the atmosphere in the office was undeniably bizarre. Several colleagues were casting shifty, evasive glances my way, huddled together and whispering in hushed tones. The moment I approached, they scattered like rats. I knew why, with a scandal this massive. Everyone was bound to find out eventually. At lunch, I stopped by the cafe near my office for a fix. I had just grabbed my order, when a figure suddenly rose from a window seat. Sulua Jiang Xiyun's childhood sweetheart, and her eventual husband. The memory of him is burned into my mind. Back when I was still at the Jiang mansion, he went out of his way to corner me once, hissing a warning Linju. Xiyun is the only one I love. You'd better stay in your lane, and don't even think about bullying her. Don't entertain any deluded fantasies. Back then, Jiang Xiyun had just framed me for theft, and I was powerless to defend myself. Sulua's gaze toward me was like looking at a pile of trash. A decade has passed since then, and he hasn't changed a bit. Still draped in luxury brands, still carrying that same insufferable air of superiority. Only a few fine lines have crept into the corners of his eyes, and his complexion looks utterly drained. Linju, we need to talk. Are you people insane too? Is this some game coming at me one by one like boss fights? Making a scene in public won't look good for you. Don't humiliate yourself in front of your workplace. I only need 10 minutes. Sulu's brow furrowed with irritation. After a brief hesitation, I decided to take a seat. People nearby were already beginning to point and whisper. The waiter approached, and he ordered an Americano. He waited until the staff was out of earshot before speaking. Linju, name your price. I took a slow sip of my coffee, remaining silent. Stepped forward and clarified that the online leaks are total fabrications. That Xiyun has been wrongfully accused. That you two are actually on great terms, and the Jiangs treated you with nothing but care. Just tell me how much cash or what resources you want. I can make it happen for you. Mr. Su, do you even know how Jiang Xiyun viciously set me up back in the day? Xiyun would never stoop to such things. She absolutely would, and she did it more than once. I'm far from being her only victim. Those were just misunderstandings, Linju. The past is dead and gone. Right now, Xiyun is being hounded by haters every day because of you. Even the Su family's business is taking a hit. Can't you find it in your heart to help her for the sake of family? Family, Mr. Su, it seems you've lost your mind. I share absolutely no blood with Jiang Xiyun. She is your wife, not my sister. Don't make this difficult for yourself. Don't test me. And what exactly are you going to do to me, Mr. Su? I can ensure you lose this job entirely. You think your government position is untouchable? Let me tell you. If I just Mr. Su, my position is granted by the people and backed by the authority of the state. If you want to come for me, you'd better check if the law and national discipline allow it first. Sulu's arrogant expression instantly petrified. Also, let me remind you of one thing. When you walked down the aisle with Jiang Xiyun, did you know she was a complete fraud? Of course I knew, he snapped. I love her for who she is. Not for her status? Well, that's just perfect. Now that her true character is being flayed alive online, you have the perfect chance to prove just how pure your love is. Don't you? Sulu's face turned a lethal shade of black. He lunged to his feet, his chair screeching across the floor with a piercing metallic rasp. Every patron in the cafe turned their heads. Linju, you are going to regret this. My only regret, I replied coldly, is that 10 years ago I didn't take the evidence of her framing me, and the proof of her lies, and broadcast it to the entire world. If I had, you wouldn't be sitting here right now spewing filth from your mouth. Sulu glared at me with a gaze that threatened to devour me whole. But in the end, he was left utterly speechless. He spun on his heel and stormed out. I sat there alone, slowly finishing that cup of coffee. It was bitter, but it kept me sharp. I thought the Zhang family's harassment was the absolute peak of this drama. But the real comedy was only just beginning. Exactly 3 days after I rejected Sulu's bribe, a headline detonated at the top of the trending searches. Jung Seun's newborn swapped at birth. I clicked the link, freezing as I stared at the screen. In the grainy hospital surveillance footage, a woman disguised in a janitor's uniform was seen clutching an infant and scurrying out of the maternity ward. The caption read, "The socialite heiress Jang Seun recently gave birth to a son at the Women and Children's Hospital. The following day, the child was discovered swapped. Police cracked the case with lightning speed. The suspect, a hospital cleaner, confessed that seeing Jang Seun's success story, she decided to replicate the scheme herself. The comment section went nuclear. What success story? LMAO. Jang Seun is literally the cleaner's daughter who swapped her way into wealth. She's just putting her education to use. Is this considered a family tradition?" I locked my phone and leaned back against my chair, watching the sunlight stream perfectly through the window. The office plants looked more vibrant and alive than ever. This headline brought only one word to my mind: retribution. Absolute karmic justice. It's pure irony, this cleaner claimed. She was inspired by Jang Seun's success story. A mere nanny's daughter, swapped into the prestigious Zhang family, living 22 years in the lap of luxury. So she figured she'd try her luck too. She wanted her own flesh and blood to experience that same gilded lifestyle. How tragic and comical. The life Chiun stole became a blueprint for success in the eyes of another desperate woman. And now Chiun's own child has been stolen away. The wheel of fate truly comes full circle. That cleaner almost pulled it off too. If only her own baby hadn't already been a month old. She was a bit dim-witted, honestly. The news spread like wildfire across the internet. Photos of Jang Seun's total breakdown at the hospital were leaked and went viral instantly. Dressed in a drab hospital gown, with her hair a tangled mess, and her eyes swollen like bruised walnuts, her usual polished elegance had completely evaporated. Sulu stood guard by her side, his face like stone as he shoved reporters away. But the public didn't have an ounce of pity for them. Your mother swapped someone else's kid, and now yours gets swapped. That's peak karma. A classic case of reaping what you sow. Young Master Su was so smug when he married her, acting like he won the lottery. Now he knows the true cost of being blinded by a fraud. Better double check if those Zhang heirs are even related. Considering their history of fakes, you never know. That final comment racked up over 100,000 likes. I can't even imagine what the Zhang family felt, scrolling through those scathing remarks. But I know for a fact they were spiraling into a panic. Sure enough, by that afternoon, rumors began to swirl that Zhang Lingyuan and Zhang Huaizhou had rushed their children to a private clinic to undergo immediate DNA paternity testing. Once you realize the person you trusted most is nothing but a professional liar, you start to question every single thing in your life. They're side-eyeing everyone with suspicion now, including their own wives and their own children. Once that seed of doubt is planted, it never stops growing. A week later, the paternity results finally dropped. It wasn't all at once, but one by one. First was Zhang Lingyuan's 8-year-old son, the boy he'd pampered and cherished for nearly a decade. The DNA report was a nightmare, not his biological child. Zhang Lingyuan collapsed onto the hospital bench in shock. He called the cops and they moved fast, finding his biological son in just 3 days. The boy had been sold to a rural family in another province. That family were victims too in their own way. They'd spent every cent they had to buy that child, and had raised him as their very own. The boy they loved for 8 years was snatched away by his real father. The culprit, a part-time cleaner, who never even fled after swapping the infants back then. Instead, she worked harder, becoming a model employee, who earned the Zhang family's glowing praise. She'd clawed her way up to become a permanent live-in servant. According to the biomom's confession, she did it because not only would her son live in luxury, but she'd be set for life as a wealthy woman in 20 years. Besides, she figured the Zhangs were soft and wouldn't dare involve the police. Look at their daughter, she mocked. She was swapped and they didn't report it. They even kept the fake one around. Zhang Huaizhou's results came in a day later. His 3-year-old daughter, also not his. He spiraled, convinced his child had been swapped too. But the investigation revealed a different twist. His daughter hadn't been exchanged at all. His wife had simply been having an affair. "The kid belongs to my first love," she sneered. "I only married you for the bank account." "Zhang Huaizhou, what do you have besides money? A trash personality and 0 brains. You spend every day looking down on everyone else. 3 years of tolerating you was more than enough." Zhang Huaizhou lost it and slapped her across the face. She immediately dialed the police, reporting Zhang Huaizhou for domestic violence. When the officers arrived to take statements, Zhang Huaizhou's wife unleashed everything right in front of them, detailing how he'd verbally abused her for years, how he'd smashed furniture in rages, and how he treated the help like dirt. "My affair was wrong, I admit that," she told them. "But living with a man like him, I'd honestly rather rot in a prison cell." Zhang Huaizhou stood there listening to the onslaught, unable to squeeze out a single word of defense. His wife packed her belongings and vanished that same day, taking her daughter with her. Or rather, taking the daughter she shared with her first love. Naturally, the media dug up both scandals in record time, releasing headlines that were juicier than the last. The Zhang brothers both cuckolded. DNA, crisis, and elite family shaken to the core. From victims to villains, the twisted swap case. The Zhang clan lost in a fog of fake bloodlines. From Xiun to the brothers. The genetic curse of the Zhang dynasty. Has this entire family been targeted? By every human trafficker and con artist in the city. They were practically begging to be scammed. They didn't even punish the child swapper, and kicked out their own biological daughter instead. They deserve it. What kind of toxic vibe attracts this much deception? Better check their ancestors' graves for a curse. Are they too stupid to understand basic DNA tests? Is this the peak IQ of the elite class? Proof that if you do enough dirty deeds, karma will find you. I scrolled through these scathing comments, methodically liking every single one of them. But the storm refused to settle and the wind only blew harder. The Zhang family scandal escalated beyond all control, as their business partners pulled their investments one by one. Refusing to be associated with such a spectacle, too moronic was the consensus in high society. Can't even handle a simple paternity test. Marrying without background checks. And raising kids without asking where they came from. The Zhang Group's stock price spiraled into the abyss, leaving them on the jagged edge of total bankruptcy. The Su family was dragged down into the mud with them. That's the price they paid for marrying Jiang Xiun. Now, wherever Su Lu goes, people point and mock him, calling him the blindest man in the country. The ultimate cuckold's family business tanked, transforming their union into the joke of the century. I assumed the Zhangs had suffered enough humiliation, and would finally crawl into a hole and disappear. But I underestimated how far desperate people will go. They'll commit the most absurd acts when pushed to the brink. Late that evening, just as I reached the gates of my apartment complex, I was suddenly swarmed by a mob Mr. Jiang, Mrs. Jiang Lingyuan, along with that biological son he just recovered. Even Jiang Huaizhou and Su Lu were there. The five of them formed a human wall blocking my path. Zhu Chuyu absolutely must save the family this time. The company is on the brink of bankruptcy. If you don't step up, the Jiang legacy is finished. As long as you represent us, and for the sake of your reputation, the business can still be resurrected. Jiang Lingyuan clutched his scrawny son, staring at me with eyes full of complex desperation. Jiang Huaizhou lingered in the back, unshaven and disheveled, his eyes bloodshot and raw, looking like he hadn't slept in an eternity. Linju, name your price. As long as you can save the Su family, nothing is off the table. I scanned their pathetic faces, then noticed the neighbors beginning to gather around us. And then I simply smirked. Fine, I said. Just give me a second. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. Hello? Officer, there's a mob harassing me at my home. The address is the police arrived in record time. 2 young officers stepped in, one ordering the Zhangs to back off, the other questioning me about the situation. I laid out the entire mess. They've been stalking and harassing me daily, completely disrupting my life. Is that all? How could you say that? We are your... I cut him off and looked directly at the officer. They've been coming here constantly lately. Even my work is being affected. Can you please make sure they never return? The officer nodded firmly, turning to demand the Zhang family leave at once. Mr. Zhang tried to argue, but Jiang Lingyuan pulled him back. The Zhang clan finally dispersed with heavy hearts, looking back at me with every reluctant step. The police gave me a few more instructions, telling me to call immediately if they reappeared, before finally heading out. I thought that would be the end of it, but early the next morning, I saw a video circulating in my apartment's owner group. Someone had secretly recorded the confrontation from last night and leaked it directly into the neighborhood group chat. The footage was crystal clear, capturing every detail. The group chat went absolutely nuclear. The real Zhang heiress from the internet lives in our complex. Before, when they leaked my name, I could play it off as a coincidence. But with this video out, there was no denying the truth. I locked my phone and took a heavy, deep breath. I wasn't afraid of petty gossip or rumors, but I was terrified of this sabotaging my career. I had fought way too hard for this stable, hard-won job. Sure enough, the moment I walked into the office, the vibe was off. My colleagues' eyes were shifty and evasive, while waves of muffled whispers followed me down the hall. When I headed to the cafeteria for lunch, huddles of people were deep in discussion, only to scatter the second they spotted me. By that afternoon, reporters were laying siege to the entrance, shoving cameras forward, desperate for an exclusive interview. Security managed to hold the line, but the vultures refused to budge, shouting that they wouldn't leave until Section Chief Lin appeared. That's exactly when my supervisor summoned me. Shaolin stepped into my office for a moment. I followed him inside, feeling the weight of the situation. My boss was in his 50s, with salt and pepper hair, a man of unshakable integrity, who always looked out for his team. He was a huge reason why I had managed to build such a solid foundation here. Take a seat, he said, gesturing toward the sofa. He poured me a cup of tea. I'm fully aware of the chaos downstairs. I took the cup in silence, my heart racing. I've seen the viral videos as well, he continued. He sat down directly across from me. Those people, are they truly your biological parents and brothers? I nodded. And they're hounding you, he surmised, to force you into clarifying the mess they've made online. I nodded again. You've had it incredibly rough, haven't you? My throat tightened instantly, for 10 long years. This was the very first time someone had said those words to me. Sir, I'll handle it. I won't let it interfere with my duties. I'm not worried about your performance, Shaolin. He waved off my concern. I'm worried about you being mistreated. He looked me straight in the eyes. His gaze softened with genuine empathy. Tell me, kid, how on earth did you survive these last 10 years alone? I've managed to piece some of it together. Back when you first applied here, your file listed you as an orphan. But the truth is, your parents were alive all along. They simply refused to acknowledge you. Their sudden reappearance isn't driven by guilt, but by a desperate need for a lifeline. People like that don't deserve a shred of your sympathy. I lowered my gaze, watching the tea leaves drift and settle in the cup. However, my boss continued, his tone shifting. You're currently in an incredibly vulnerable position. Their daily outbursts and scenes, and the relentless media blockade at our gates, are casting a shadow over you, this department, and even the peace of your neighbors. Then, what do you suggest I do, sir? The leader offered a warm smile. Shaolin, you are a public servant of the state, a deputy section-level official of this city. You have the entire nation standing behind you. The government and millions of citizens who support justice are in your corner. Don't be afraid. When truth is on your side, the state will always be your shield. I looked up as he continued, rather than hiding in the shadows. It's time to seize the initiative. I suggest you sit down for an official media interview. Now make everything crystal clear. Make your stance absolutely undeniable. That's how you force those harassers to give up hope and ensure the public finally sees the unvarnished truth. Furthermore, he paused. You are a representative of the government's image. Use the spotlight to showcase our city. We've seen such incredible growth over the years, with such a thriving business environment. Wouldn't this be the perfect platform for some positive PR? You're suggesting I use the interview to promote the city. The leader nodded firmly. Think about it. A woman abandoned by a wealthy elite family, who climbed her way up to become a civil servant through sheer grit. In the face of targeted harassment, she doesn't crumble, but instead champions a city that gave her a chance. That is a narrative packed with raw positive energy. It perfectly embodies our city's inclusivity and progress. I fell silent. It was a brilliant strategy. It was the key to shaking off the Jiang family's shackles, while actually contributing to the community. And truthfully, I was starving for this exact opportunity. I needed to vent the truths I'd buried for a decade. I'll do it. I'll accept the interview. My boss beamed. That's the spirit. I'll facilitate a connection with the municipal station. They have a highly prestigious news program that is perfect for an in-depth exclusive like this. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me, he said with a wave. Just remember, you've done nothing wrong. You're simply reclaiming the narrative that belongs to you. He was right. I was going to expose everything for the world to hear. The interview was scheduled 3 days later, at the municipal television studio. The space was cavernous, bathed in blindingly bright lights. The host was a woman in her 40s, possessing a gentle demeanor, but incredibly sharp, observant eyes. She had reviewed the interview outline with me beforehand, probing into the fine details, while remaining deeply respectful. Don't be nervous, Section Chief Lin. Let's just treat this as a candid conversation. Just speak your truth. I nodded and the cameras began to roll. The host opened with a brief introduction of my role as a deputy section chief at a certain government agency. Then she cut straight to the chase. Section Chief Lin, the internet is currently buzzing with rumors regarding you and the Jiangs. We've invited you here today because we want to hear the story from your perspective. What exactly is your relationship with the Jiang family? The Jiangs are my biological parents, I stated, but I haven't had a single contact with them in 10 years. And why is that? Why the decade of silence? Because 10 years ago, after they finally brought me home, I chose to walk away forever after only 1 month. The reason was simple. In that household, I was never granted the respect or trust a child deserves. Could you elaborate on that for us? I nodded and began to recount my life from the baby swap at birth, to the horrific abuse I suffered at the hands of my foster parents, to my escape at 18 and working through college. I slowly rolled up my sleeve, revealing an ancient jagged scar on my forearm. My foster mother branded me with a searing fire poker, all because I accidentally broke a single bowl. The wound had closed ages ago, but the mark remained permanent, coiled on my skin like a grotesque twisted centipede. And that's not all. My back and legs are littered with similar marks, though those aren't quite appropriate to show on camera. The host fell into a stunned silence for several seconds. What was going through your mind when you finally left? Pure liberation. I finally realized that the internet is right. Some blood ties are meant to be severed from birth. Then I produced the cold hard evidence. The records of that $100,000 bank card. they threw at me when I left the Jiangs 10 years ago. It wasn't a gift, nor was it charity. It was the meager compensation they owed me. They owed me for 22 years of stolen life, yet they gave nothing else. So I accepted those funds with a completely clear conscience. Next, I played the footage. The quality was grainy, but the faces were unmistakable. You could clearly see Jiang Xion surreptitiously slipping a diamond necklace into my desk drawer before bolting out to scream that her jewelry was missing. You could see her standing at the top of the stairs, checking to ensure no one was watching, before throwing herself backward down the steps. And then the fake sobbing began. I had recorded all of this in secret back then, just to prove my own innocence. But eventually I realized they weren't worth the effort of an explanation. A heavy, stifling silence filled the studio. As the interview reached its climax, the atmosphere became incredibly somber. Section Chief Lin, the Jiangs have faced a string of disasters lately. What are your thoughts on their current plight? I find it regrettable, I said calmly, but it has absolutely nothing to do with me. I haven't spoken to them in a decade. Their current misery is the harvest of the seeds. They planted themselves. They raised Jiang Xion themselves, and she merely inherited their inherent selfishness and coldness. Regarding the endless speculation and rumors online, is there anything you'd like to say to the public? I am a dedicated civil servant. My mandate comes from the people. I won't abuse my position to air personal grievances, nor will I let my private life interfere with my duty. I didn't come here today to play the victim, and I'm certainly not looking for revenge. I'm simply here to set the record straight. The Jiang family and I are officially settled. So, aside from clearing the air about the facts, is there anything else you'd like to share today? Actually, I'd like to take this moment to introduce our beloved city. The host was momentarily stunned, but she quickly broke into an appreciative, knowing smile. I pivoted toward the camera and began my pitch. I detailed our city's massive developmental milestones, highlighted our unique, breathtaking tourist attractions, and showcased our world-class business environment. Our city is a bastion of inclusivity, openness, and progress. Here we prioritize raw talent and moral integrity over one's family background or pedigree, as long as you're willing to grind and stay true to yourself. The city will provide you with the ultimate opportunity. Just look at me, a girl discarded by an elite family, who carved out a career and a stable life through sheer grit. I built a destiny that belongs to me alone. So to everyone watching, I want to say, come visit, come invest, and come build a life here. In our city, every single person who lives with passion and purpose will find a fair and glorious stage. The night the interview aired, the ratings went nuclear. The concurrent viewers on the live stream shattered every record. The bullet comments and discussion boards were chaotic. Good lord. This plot twist is absolutely legendary. Section Chief Lin is a total queen. To stay this composed after such vile abuse, respect. 10 years, how did she survive that lonely hell? Those leaked videos made my blood boil. Was the Jiang family collectively blind? Ending with the city promo, now that is high-level thinking. This is the true definition of a modern empowered woman. Consider me an instant fan. When you compare her to Jiang Xion's trashy past, it's literally the difference between heaven and the gutter. My phone was nearly vibrating off the table with notifications. Relatives, friends, colleagues, and even long-lost classmates sent a flood of messages. Some were consoling, some were in complete awe, and some expressed deep admiration. I replied to each one, thanking them for their genuine concern. The crushing weight that had sat on my chest for a decade had finally mercifully been lifted. The very next morning, I received an official call from the Public Security Bureau. Lin Zhu, your foster mother has been taken into custody. She confessed to her role in the infant swap and ratted out several of her human trafficking accomplices. Thank you, that is truly fantastic news. The news of my foster mother's arrest spread like wildfire, appearing alongside the formal announcement of the Jiang and Su families entering bankruptcy liquidation. They were all pinned to the top of the trending list together. Netizens' comments were sharply divided. Evil yields evil. They got exactly what they deserved. The Jiangs are actually kind of tragic, being deceived for so many years. However, the majority of eyes were fixed on me, the civil servant who remained so composed in her interview, never forgetting to promote her city even in her darkest hour. My department eventually held a formal commendation meeting, publicly praising my unwavering principles and sense of responsibility. Comrade Lin Zhu perfectly embodies the stellar image of a modern civil servant. We must all learn from her example, staying true to our original aspirations and remembering our core mission. Thunderous applause echoed throughout the hall. As for the final fate of the Jiang family, I only learned about it through secondary news reports. Mr. and Mrs. Jiang were forced to sell their mansion and move into a modest 2-bedroom apartment. They now live in total seclusion, hardly ever showing their faces in public. Jiang Lingyuan took his biological son and left the city far behind. Word has it they moved south to start over from scratch. Jiang Huaizhou became a complete wreck after his divorce, spending his days drowned in alcohol. Reporters even snapped photos of him passed out on the street, his face haggard and unrecognizable, a far cry from the arrogant, insufferable second young master Jiang he used to be. Jiang Xun and Suluo officially divorced. The Su family is finished, their assets liquidated. Suluo is now buried under a mountain of debt, rumored to have fled the country to escape his creditors. The curtain has finally closed on this absurd farce. My life has returned to its normal track, though it's better than before, thanks to that interview. I've become the face of our city. When the city organizes tourism promotion events, my boss invites me as a guest for investment summits. I'm the one asked to deliver the keynote speech. Section Chief Lin's story, they say, best represents our city's spirit of inclusivity and grit. My foster father once said bamboo was cheap and lowly, so he named me Linju. I used to loathe this name with every fiber of my being, but I've slowly learned to embrace it. A bamboo stalk emerging from a thicket of thorns, rooted in a bed of briars left battered and scarred. Yet I never once ceased my upward climb, reaching for the light piercing through the sky, stretching toward every possibility the world offered. Now I've finally flourished into a vast independent grove, unshaken by the fiercest storms, and vibrant through every season.